My name is Melinda R. McDougall. I'm 31, and I work as a logistics coordinator for a regional supply company in Ohio. My life runs on schedules, spreadsheets, and clear expectations. I rent a 2-bedroom apartment close to work, keep things tidy, and generally avoid unnecessary drama. Stability isn't flashy, but it works. My boyfriend Ryan is 28. We had been together a little over 2 years and living together for 14 months. The lease was in my name because I had the stronger credit and had already been there before he moved in. Ryan is charming and quick-witted when he wants to be. He also has a habit of testing people just to see what he can get away with. I noticed it early on, but told myself it was confidence. Looking back, it was entitlement wrapped in charm. The first year was mostly smooth. He liked going out more than I did, but I went along with it. I paid for most dinners because I made more. He would make little jokes about how I was lucky he chose me instead of some fitness influencer he used to date. I laughed it off at the time. It felt harmless. Things shifted around the start of this year. His friend group changed after he got closer to a few coworkers who treated relationships like status symbols. Every hangout became a comparison. Who got the bigger bouquet? Who got the surprise trip? Who was getting a ring soon? Ryan started bringing that energy home. He would scroll on his phone and say things like, "Look what Jenna's boyfriend did for her," or, "Do you think you'd ever plan something like this?" It wasn't direct criticism. It was constant nudging. I stayed calm and consistent. I told him I preferred steady over flashy. I reminded him we were building something practical. He would roll his eyes and call me safe. Safe, apparently, wasn't aspirational enough for him anymore. Last Friday night was the tipping point. We were out with his friends for a birthday at a crowded bar downtown. He had a few drinks in him and was louder than usual. I was mostly quiet, talking to one of the guys about work. At some point, the conversation at the table turned into relationship banter. One of his friends joked about trading up. Everyone laughed. Ryan looked straight at me, smirked, and said, "If you don't like how I am, you can leave." The table went quiet for half a second. Then a few nervous laughs followed. He leaned back like he had just won something. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just looked at him and said, "Okay." That's when the tone of the night changed completely. I stood up before anyone could spin it into a joke. I grabbed my jacket from the back of the chair and put it on slowly, like I was just stepping out for air. "Wait, are you serious?" he asked. His expression shifted from smug to confused in about 3 seconds. One of his friends tried to laugh it off, telling me not to be dramatic. I didn't respond. I put some cash on the table to cover my drink and walked out. No slammed doors, no raised voice, just a calm exit. Outside, the cold air felt sharp against my skin. I wasn't angry in the explosive sense. I was done. There's a difference. When someone gives you an ultimatum in public like that, it isn't a slip. It's a power move. And I don't negotiate power moves. On the drive home, my phone started lighting up on the passenger seat. First Ryan, then 2 of his friends, then Ryan again. I didn't read any of it. At the next red light, I blocked his number. Then I blocked him on every social platform we used. Clean, simple, immediate. If he wanted me gone, he would get exactly that. By the time I got to the apartment, I already knew what I was going to do. The lease was in my name. Utilities were in my name. Most of the furniture was mine from before he moved in. He had moved into my space, not the other way around. I unlocked the door and walked into a quiet apartment. His sneakers were by the entryway. His gym bag was on the chair. Normal night, except it wasn't. I went straight to the bedroom and pulled out 2 large suitcases from the closet. Then I grabbed 3 storage bins from the hall cabinet. I didn't throw anything. I didn't damage anything. I folded his clothes carefully and packed them into the suitcases. Shoes in their original boxes. Toiletries gathered from the bathroom and sealed in a zip pouch. It took about an hour to pack everything that was clearly his. If I bought it, it stayed. If he brought it, it went. When I finished, I carried the suitcases and bins out into the hallway just outside the apartment door. Not dumped. Lined up neatly against the wall. Then I came back inside, locked the door, and changed the deadbolt code. The building allowed tenants to update it. I had never bothered before. Tonight, I did. Around midnight, someone started knocking hard. Ryan's voice followed. "Open the door. Stop being ridiculous." I didn't move. The knocking went from aggressive to frantic in less than a minute. "Melinda, open the door right now." His voice had lost the smug edge from the bar. It was sharp now, almost panicked. I stayed on the couch, hands folded, just listening. There is something revealing about how fast someone switches from confident to desperate when the script flips. "You can't just lock me out," he shouted. I stood up, walked to the door, but I didn't open it. I spoke through it calm and clear. "You told me if I didn't like you, I could leave. I agreed. I packed your things. They're outside. You're free to go wherever you want." There was a pause, then a scoff. "You're overreacting. I was joking. Everyone jokes like that." I didn't respond to the deflection. Public humiliation disguised as humor is still humiliation. He tried the handle. It didn't budge. "I changed the code," I said. "The lease is in my name. We can arrange a time this weekend for you to grab anything I missed." His tone shifted again. "You're embarrassing yourself. My friends are downstairs." That explained the extra noise in the hallway. A few muffled whispers. I imagined them standing there expecting some romantic standoff scene. I opened the door, just enough to look at him and the two friends behind him. Ryan's confidence had drained into something brittle. Your bags are there," I said, pointing. He stared at the lined-up suitcases like they were foreign objects. "You're seriously ending a 2-year relationship over one sentence." "No," I said evenly. "I'm ending it over what that sentence represents." He laughed, but it sounded hollow, like he was trying to convince himself more than anyone else. "So that's it. You're just throwing me away." "No," I said. "I'm respecting what you said." One of his friends muttered that this was getting out of hand. Another whispered that maybe they should go. The mood had shifted from entertainment to consequence. Ryan looked at them, then back at me, like he expected someone to back him up and restore the script. Nobody did. "You'll regret this," he said, forcing the words out like a threat he'd practiced. "Maybe," I replied, "but not tonight." I stepped back inside and closed the door, locked it. Through the door, I heard the scraping sound of suitcase wheels on the hallway floor, then Ryan's voice dropping into a hiss as he complained to his friends. The elevator dinged. Silence returned. I stood there for a moment letting it settle. No yelling, no crying, no grand speech, just a clean line. And for the first time in months, the apartment felt like mine again. I slept. Not perfectly, but deeply enough to feel the difference between tension and freedom. The next morning was quiet. No notifications. No missed calls. Blocking him the night before had done exactly what it was supposed to do. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and thought through the practical side. Breakups are emotional, sure, but they're also logistical. Ryan had been using my parking spot, my Wi-Fi account, and was listed as an authorized user on one of my credit cards for convenience. By noon, I had removed him from the credit card, changed the Wi-Fi password, and emailed the building manager to document that he no longer lived there. Not to be spiteful, to avoid complications. Around mid-afternoon, my phone rang from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, another unknown number called. Same area code. I answered that one. "Really, Melinda," he said immediately. "Blocking me is childish. Changing numbers is predictable," I replied. He took a breath like he was gearing up for a speech. "You embarrassed me last night. My friends think you're unstable." "Your friends laughed when you told me I could leave," I said calmly. "If they're uncomfortable now, that's not my problem." He tried a different angle. "You packed my stuff like I was nothing after everything I've done for you." I actually paused at that. "Everything you've done for me," I repeated. "You know what I mean." "No," I said. "Explain it." Silence. He didn't have a clean answer. "Don't twist this," he snapped. "You're blowing this way out of proportion." "It was a joke." "A joke is funny," I said. "That wasn't." He sighed, frustration creeping in. "So what now? You're just done?" "Yes." "Just like that." "Just like that." There was another pause, this one heavier. "You're going to look stupid when everyone hears my side." "You can tell whatever version you want," I replied. That seemed to irritate him more than an argument would have. "Fine," he snapped. "Don't expect me to make this easy." "It already is," I said. "Take care." And I hung up. That evening, one of his friends, Chloe, messaged me on social media before I could block her too. "Can we talk? You need to know something." I almost ignored it. Almost. Instead, I agreed to meet her the next day at a coffee shop near my office. Not because I wanted him back, because tone shifts like that usually mean the story isn't over. I met Chloe the next afternoon at a coffee shop near my office. Neutral ground. Bright lighting. No room for theatrics. She looked uncomfortable the moment I sat down. Not hostile, just uneasy. "Thanks for coming," she said. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," I replied. She nodded like she deserved that. Look, I'm not here to defend Ryan. I just think you should know the context. Context, that word again. She stirred her coffee, even though she hadn't added anything to it. The whole "if you don't like me, you can leave" thing wasn't random. He's been talking for weeks about how you'd never actually leave, that you're too stable, too predictable. I didn't interrupt. I let her finish. He kept saying you'd argue, maybe get upset, but you'd stay. Friday night was supposed to prove that. Prove what? I asked. That he had the upper hand. She looked embarrassed. It started as teasing in the group chat. Then it turned into this running thing, like, how far can he push before you push back? I leaned back slowly. That made more sense than a drunken joke. And what did he expect to happen if I left? I asked. He thought you'd come back the next day apologizing for overreacting. I almost smiled at that. Not because it was funny, because it was miscalculated. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because it got ugly after you left, she admitted. Some of us said he crossed a line. He doubled down, said you needed to be humbled, that you were too comfortable. Comfortable. That word again. When you packed his stuff and didn't argue, it flipped the room, she added. No one expected you to actually follow through. That was the pattern. He didn't want a breakup. He wanted a reaction. He wanted to feel chosen after threatening replacement. He lost control of the narrative, Chloe said quietly, and he hates that. I nodded once. Actions are hard to spin when they're quiet. Over the next few days, I stayed quiet publicly. No posts, no explanations, no cryptic captions. I went to work. I hit the gym. I cooked dinner in a kitchen that felt calm again. Stability doesn't disappear just because someone tries to shake it. Ryan, on the other hand, didn't stay quiet. I heard through a coworker who knew one of his friends that he had been telling people I snapped, that I overreacted, that I had anger issues. Interesting choice of language, considering I never raised my voice. I never threw anything. I packed neatly and closed a door. When someone loses leverage, they escalate the narrative. By midweek, the tone shifted again. A mutual friend, Brian, called me. What actually happened? He asked. Ryan's telling people you lost it. He told me I could leave if I didn't like him, I replied calmly. So I left. Silence. That's it? That's it. Another pause. That's not how he framed it. I'm not surprised. Apparently, at a small gathering that Tuesday, someone asked Ryan directly why he would say something like that in public. Instead of owning it, he doubled down, said I needed to be reminded I wasn't the only option. That didn't land well. One of his closer friends reportedly told him, "You don't get to humiliate someone and call it a test. Friend groups are fragile ecosystems. When someone repeatedly creates tension for validation, people eventually get tired." I didn't campaign against him. I didn't defend myself loudly. I just stayed consistent. And consistency exposes insecurity faster than confrontation does. A few days later, I ran into Ryan in person for the first time since that night. It was at Brian's small housewarming. I almost didn't go, but I wasn't going to rearrange my life to avoid someone I had already removed from mine. He froze when he saw me. Not shocked. More irritated that I was there first and acting normal. I was talking with two people about a camping trip. Calm, unbothered. "So we're just pretending now," he said loudly enough for people nearby to hear. I looked at him evenly. "There's nothing to pretend about." He crossed his arms. "You could have talked to me before blowing everything up. You told me to leave if I didn't like you. I left." The room didn't explode. It just went quiet. "You twisted it," he said. "Everyone jokes like that." "Not everyone tests their partner in public," I replied. One of his friends, Megan, who had been at the bar, spoke up. "Ryan, you didn't say it like a joke." He shot her a look. "Now you're taking her side?" "I'm not taking sides," she said evenly. "I just think you pushed it too far." That was the shift. He expected backup. He got honesty. He turned back to me. "You're really enjoying this, aren't you?" "No," I said calmly. "I just don't chase after someone who tries to make me feel small." He hesitated. That pause told me more than any apology could. "You didn't even fight for us," he said quietly. "I did," I answered, by not accepting that. He didn't have a reply ready for that, and that was the first time I saw it clearly on his face. He hadn't expected me to pass the test. About a week after the housewarming, Ryan made one last attempt to control the ending. I was walking out of work for lunch when I saw his car parked near the edge of the lot. He stepped out before I reached mine. He looked less polished than usual, tired, irritated, not dramatic, just unsettled. "We need to talk," he said, walking toward me. "We already did," I replied. I stopped a few feet away. Neutral distance. No escalation. Not like this. Not with everyone watching and judging me. No one is judging you because of me, I said calmly. He ran a hand through his hair. They think I'm manipulative. I didn't rush to comfort him, and that's not who I am. I held his gaze. Then why did you try to prove I wouldn't leave? He hesitated. That hesitation mattered more than anything he said next. I didn't think you actually would. There it was. Not anger, not heartbreak, miscalculation. You thought I'd argue, I said. I thought you'd push back, fight for it. So fighting for us means tolerating public humiliation? That's not what I meant. It's what happened. He exhaled sharply. You made me look stupid. You handed me the exit. I walked through it. Silence hung between us. No shouting, no dramatic tears. Just two adults facing the collapse of leverage. You didn't even hesitate, he said, quieter now. That's what hurt. I considered that. You wanted to feel chosen after threatening a replacement. That's not how I operate. His jaw tightened. You're not as replaceable as I thought. I gave a small nod. And you're not as untouchable as you assumed. That one landed. He looked away first. That was the real shift. So that's it, he said finally. You're done. Yes. What if I said I was wrong? I'd appreciate that, I replied evenly, but I still wouldn't stay. That clearly wasn't the script he brought with him. He had expected emotion, anger, tears, negotiation. Instead, he got alignment. You're choosing your pride over 2 years, he said. No, I answered. I'm choosing my boundaries over a pattern. The word pattern made him flinch, because it wasn't about one sentence at a bar. It was months of nudges, comparisons, subtle leverage, tests disguised as jokes. He stood there a moment longer, searching for a crack in my posture. There wasn't one. Fine, he muttered. Do what you want. I already did. He got back into his car without another word. No slammed door, no dramatic exit, just a quiet drive away. That was the last direct conversation we had. After that, things didn't explode. They dissolved. His friend group slowly adjusted. The energy shifted. A few of them distanced themselves from him after realizing the test had been deliberate. Apparently, at another small gathering, someone finally said it out loud. You don't get to humiliate someone and then act shocked when they leave. That sentence stuck. Over the next month, the noise faded. No more unknown numbers, no more indirect messages through mutual friends, no more vague social posts about loyalty and betrayal, just quiet. 3 months later, I signed a lease for a bigger apartment. Better light, cleaner layout. Not because I needed to escape memories, but because it made sense financially. This time, everything was intentional. One name on the lease, one person on the utilities. No emotional volatility attached to billing cycles. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard Ryan had moved in with a coworker temporarily. His application for a new apartment fell through. Credit issues he hadn't mentioned before. He had tried dating immediately. That part didn't surprise me. Prove you have options. Prove you're wanted. From what I heard, it didn't go smoothly. I didn't stalk updates. I didn't ask questions. When something ends cleanly, it should stay that way. One night, over dinner, Brian looked at me and said, You handled that differently than most people would. I shrugged. Most people try to win arguments. I just adjusted the math. 'Cause that's what it really was. When he said, If you don't like me, you can leave, he thought he was introducing competition. What he introduced was optionality, and optionality cuts both ways. If I'm optional, then so is my rent contribution. If I'm optional, then so is my emotional labor. If I'm optional, then so is my presence. You don't threaten replacement and still expect permanence. The last thing I heard was that he told someone, I didn't think she'd actually leave. That's the core of it. He didn't think I would actually leave. Not because he loved me too much to lose, but because he thought leverage would hold. It didn't. He expected insecurity. He got accountability. And walking away wasn't dramatic. It was aligned. When someone tests your value publicly, you don't argue. You exit. No revenge, no shouting, just consequence. And for me, that was enough. 3 months after that night at the bar, the noise was gone. No more unknown numbers. No more indirect messages through mutual friends. No more vague social media captions about betrayal and loyalty. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that feels earned. I had moved into a new apartment by then, slightly bigger, better light, cleaner layout, not because I needed to escape memories, but because it made sense financially and logistically. This time, everything had one name on it. Mine. The lease, the utilities, the internet, the parking spot. Predictability feels different when it isn't shared with someone who treats it like leverage. Through overlapping circles, I heard Ryan had eventually moved into a smaller place across town. A studio, older building, no balcony. Nothing wrong with a studio. But it wasn't the lifestyle he liked to present. From what I gathered, he had tried dating almost immediately. That part didn't surprise me. Prove you have options. Prove you're wanted. But options that work in conversation don't always hold up in real life. A few short-lived situations, nothing stable. Apparently, at one point, someone in his friend group finally said it directly to him. You don't get to test someone publicly and call it confidence. That conversation didn't go well for him. The dynamic shifted. Friend groups are fragile when ego becomes entertainment. When you repeatedly create tension for validation, people eventually get tired. I didn't celebrate that. I didn't feel vindicated. If anything, it felt anticlimactic. The breakup wasn't explosive. It wasn't cinematic. It was clean. And clean endings don't echo loudly. One evening, sitting at my new kitchen counter with a glass of wine, I thought back to the exact moment it flipped. If you don't like me, you can leave. He expected jealousy. He expected insecurity. He expected me to prove I wanted him badly enough to stay. Instead, he got agreement. Sometimes the most powerful response isn't an argument. It's alignment. I didn't leave because I was angry. I left because I understood. Understood that someone who needs to test your position in their life doesn't feel secure in their own. Understood that humiliation disguised as humor is still humiliation. Understood that if someone introduces the idea that you're optional, you don't beg to be chosen. You let them see what life looks like without you. A few weeks ago, I ran into Brian again. He looked at me carefully and said, "You know what impressed me the most?" I raised an eyebrow. "You didn't chase, you didn't fight, you just left." I smiled slightly. If someone gives you an exit, you don't negotiate the door. From what I've heard, Ryan eventually admitted to someone that he didn't think I'd actually leave. That sentence stuck with me, not because it hurt, because it revealed everything. He didn't think I'd leave, not because he believed in us, but because he believed leverage would hold me in place. It didn't. Stability isn't loud. It's not flashy. It doesn't get applause in crowded bars. But it holds. And when someone mistakes steadiness for weakness, they usually find out the difference the hard way. I don't hate him. I don't need to. I don't replay the conversation. I don't wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed and argued. Because the truth is simple. If someone tests your value publicly, the test isn't about love. It's about power. And I don't negotiate power games. He said I could leave. So I did. And the life I built afterward didn't require proving anything to anyone.